Hello and welcome to today's Jane's Online Intelligence Briefing, which focuses on an interesting niche of naval capabilities, looking at current and future Corvette programs around the world. My name is Nick Brown and I head up the Jane's Naval Platforms and Weapons team. I'll be moderating today's webinar and I'm proud to say that we've got a great team of specialists on the line for the session. Today's presentation draws on content from a range of our news, reference and forecasting products, and readers of our Defence Insight reports will recognise our current interest in the Corvette theme.
So I'll start off with two things. Firstly, you might be wondering, what do we mean when we say Corvette? So in our definitions, it's generally a light surface combatant of between 800 and 3,000 tons displacement of about 60 to about 100 meters length. But borders tend to be blurred at the lower and the upper end between fast attack craft and then light frigates. And a lot of it is down to what the operator calls it in the end. So there might be some varying definitions of some programs as we go along, and obviously across the world's navies. But let's have a look at the market as well. Just to set the scene, in some of the later slides you'll see that in the current 10-year window, 2019 through to 2028, it looks like a bit of a downturn. However, we have to consider it against the background of somewhat lower activity in the preceding 10 years. So it might just be a case that we're returning to business as usual after a level of heightened activity in the market right now. So next slide, please. And a similar picture shows as well in the number of units procured. So the first slide was value, and this one is number of vessels built per year. Doesn't necessarily mean number of vessels delivered, but it's the cumulative total of ships in build in that particular year. So again, it shows that we're returning to a lower level of about 5 to 10 Corvettes in build per year in the latter part of the 2020s. But right now, certainly we're seeing a heightened level of activity, which just makes it worthwhile certainly looking at this market sector. Next slide, please. That brings us back to the current 10-year window, and let's just have a quick look at what's happening across the world. So it's a relatively small sector, about 5.5% of the global spend we're predicting in Jane's Markets forecast for naval shipbuilding, which equates to just under $33 billion, and doesn't compare entirely favorably to other surface combatants such as destroyers, which are about 14% of the market, and frigates, which remain ever popular and account for about 19% of the market. Nevertheless, there's a lot of activity going on at the moment, and we'll have a look at some of them in more detail. As a quick preview, East Asia, Eastern Europe and Middle East in particular are areas of key interest. So next slide, please. Right, in Asia, Northeast Asia, China has been building the Type 056 Jiangdao class corvettes at a rapid pace over the last couple of years. We're now counting more than 50 launched since about 2012, and based on previous predictions of about 60, just about 60 ships, we might now start to see the end of the production run, but we'll have to see what happens in terms of ships being launched over the next couple of years.
The first country that I will be examining, which is Malaysia. So the Royal Malaysian Navy is currently in a very interesting position. As many of us may be aware, they have embarked on this transformation program known as the 15-to-5 program, which will reduce the number of ship classes while increasing the number of vessels in service. So plans for this were first revealed in a one-on-one interview that I had with the previous naval chief, Admiral Kamarul Zaman, in late 2015. And that was when he told me that this transformation is to reduce the maintenance and training costs by leveraging on commonality across the service. What the country is facing right now is that it's facing a lot of financial pressure by falling hydrocarbon revenues, and of course there's also the unexpected exposure to the 1MDB scandal. And what is something to note about the Malaysian Armed Forces is that there's a growing pool of pensioners who are claiming benefits from the defense budget. Close to 30 to 40% of their defense budget every year just goes towards maintaining the pension. So there's a lot of financial pressure on budgets. On top of that, there's also increasing militancy or the threat of militancy in Eastern Sabah, as what we saw in May 2017 when armed groups that are aligned to the Islamic State in the Middle East declared a caliphate in southern Mindanao. I think that affected a lot of Malaysians, and that particular part of the narrative, that security narrative, is still echoing until today. This will add on to the already ongoing number of maritime piracy, fuel bunkering, and kidnapping cases in the Sulu and Celebes Seas. So what the Malaysians are now planning to do with this 15-5 transformation program is that they have identified the increasing need for modular vessel types that are, instead of being dedicated, but they want something that can be reconfigured quickly for conventional and non-conventional missions. And they are moving towards payloads that can be interchangeable between the vessels instead of dedicated ships. And these payloads that they are looking for include MCM, anti-submarine warfare, and even humanitarian assistance type of mission payloads.
And as Alex noted earlier, the Corvette program development there is kind of slight because of various operational necessities. However, there are a couple of countries that I've decided to focus on because of the way they're going about their manner for developing their own Corvette programs, and that would be Ecuador and Brazil. And while the overall goal is the same, that is deploy capable Corvettes, Ecuador and Brazil are pursuing different individual objectives with respect to ship programs. Next slide, please. For Ecuador, the Corvette program is meant to extend the life of the existing ships so the nation can continue to patrol its borders without making major investments in a new order fleet. Now, these ships are important because the Navy relies on them to combat maritime crimes, particularly smuggling and illegal fishing. Under the Project Jupiter, the state-run shipyard Navi is upgrading 3 Esmeralda-class corvettes, which were acquired from Italy in the late 1970s, to extend their operational life for an additional 2 decades. The ships slated for work are the Manabi, Loja, and Los Rios. Previously, Esmeralda-class ships had been refitted with new combat data systems and refurbished engines. And the new 3 corvettes have received domestically manufactured Orion combat systems. And the project started in 2014. It cost about $71 million for all 3 ships. Next slide, please. For its part, Brazil is looking to bolster its domestic shipping industry with its Tamandaré-class Corvette program. Corvette project, which is coordinated by the state-run firm Empresa Gerencial de Projetos Navais, MGPRON, is part of the construction of Naval Power's strategic program. The ships are meant to enable the Brazilian Navy to carry out a large range of missions in its jurisdictional waters. And this includes a whole gamut of things from anti-submarine, surface warfare, surveillance, and patrol. The interesting part about this is the Navy wants the fleet to be built in Brazil under a technology transfer agreement with a local shipbuilder. However, the country knows that some of the work will likely have to be done and completed at the main contractor's facilities abroad. The program for a 3rd batch of the locally built Corvettes started in 2013. The new Corvettes are broadly based on the design of the Barossa-class Corvette. A request for proposal for the building program was issued in late 2017. Construction is supposed to start by 2020 with deliveries from about 2023. Now, these ships are not meant to replace any existing class of ships, but instead to create a whole new class. They are expected to, as I said before, to be multi-role and feature both anti-ship and anti-air missile systems. The MBDA Scepter, for example, was selected in November 2014, and they also, again, have that ability to embark and operate helicopters. Navy wants to commission ships 2022 and 2025. Brazil sent requests for proposals to local and foreign companies, including up to 20 main contractors in December 2017 and January 2018. The RFPs called for a Corvette design developed by Brazilian Navy's Ship Design Center, CPN, or designs developed by individual companies. This Corvette project was set up according to a technical agreement between the Brazilian Navy Directorate of Programs Management and MG Pron. 9 main contractor groups in the end were vying to build the Corvettes, and the directorate announced a short list of 4 just this October. Now, these teams are offering a host of different proposals to meet all the Brazilian requirements. Naval Group is offering a Goblin Class 3000 type with the company's Cetus combat management system. Damon is proposing the Sigma 10514 ship with the Saab 9 LV combat system. TKMS is offering a customized variant of the MECO A100 design. Nick and Cherry is proposing a Corvette design that is developed by the Brazilian Navy's Naval Project Center with support from VAR Niterói and equipped with Leonardo Athena combat system. The Brazilian Navy is expected to select the best offer in March, very early March, and start negotiating that contract for a possible contract award by the end of the month. And again, plans to commission the first ship 4 years after contracts are signed. So the key takeaways that we take from this is that Ecuador, again, is using its Corvette program to extend operational life for an additional 20 years. However, those major systems anchored advancements are facing some developmental problems. Now, 2 of the ships modernized completed sea trials already. On the other hand, Brazil is looking to bolster its domestic ship industry with this Tamaranda-class Corvette program. And there are still 4 teams looking to get that contract, which is expected to be announced in March.